The stars above New Haven Colony burned bright on what should have been a peaceful morning. Children played in the streets of the human settlement, while their parents worked in the agricultural domes that fed 3 million people. No one looked up at the sky. No one saw the shadow of death coming from above. The warships dropped out of faster-than-light travel without warning. There were 12 of them, massive vessels covered in black armor and weapons that glowed with purple energy. They did not send a message. They did not make demands. They simply opened fire. The first blast hit the central city and turned it to ash in seconds. The second destroyed the hospital where hundreds of sick and injured people lay in their beds. The third, fourth, and fifth strikes hit the residential areas where families had just sat down for breakfast. In the Galactic Council chamber, thousands of light years away, Ambassador Henry Brooks received the news through his communication device. His face went pale. His hands began to shake. But when he looked up at the assembled alien representatives, his eyes were cold and hard like stones. "Ambassador Brooks," said the council speaker, a tall being from the species with silver skin and 4 arms. "We have received reports of an incident at your colony. The Empire claims this was a military action against a threat to their security." Henry Brooks stood slowly from his seat. He was 63 years old with gray hair and a kind face that had spent 40 years building friendships across the galaxy. Everyone knew him as a gentle man who preferred talking to fighting. Everyone thought humans were soft. "A threat to their security," Henry repeated quietly. "New Haven was a farming colony. We grew vegetables. We raised cattle. The most dangerous weapon on that planet was a kitchen knife." The ambassador, a large creature with red scales and 4 yellow eyes, rose from his seat across the chamber. His name was, and he spoke with pride in his deep voice, "The Empire does not explain itself to lesser species. Humanity will surrender and pay tribute, or more of your worlds will burn. This is not a negotiation. This is a fact." Several alien ambassadors nodded in agreement. They were powerful. They had conquered 11 species in the past century. Everyone expected humans to do what every other weak species had done. Everyone expected them to bow. Henry Brooks looked around the chamber at the faces watching him. Some showed pity. Some showed amusement. None showed respect. Humanity had been part of the Galactic Council for 40 years, and in all that time they had never fought a war. They traded goods. They shared technology. They helped other species with medical research and disaster relief. The galaxy had decided long ago that humans were harmless. "How many?" Henry asked quietly. "Excuse me," the council speaker replied. "How many of my people did you kill today?" Henry looked directly at the ambassador. Smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. "Our sensors counted approximately 2.3 million life forms before the bombardment. Afterward, they counted none. Your colony is gone, human. Accept your defeat with dignity." The chamber fell silent. 2.3 million lives, gone in minutes. Children who would never grow up. Parents who would never hold their families again. An entire world of dreams and hopes turned to dust and fire. Henry Brooks closed his eyes for a moment. When he opened them again, something had changed in his face. The gentle diplomat was gone. In his place stood something older and darker, something that remembered every war humanity had ever fought against itself. "You have made a mistake," Henry said, his voice calm and steady. "You will not survive it." Laughed, and several other ambassadors joined him. "Threats from a species that has no military. Your entire fleet is 50 ships. We have thousands. What will you do, farmer? Throw vegetables at us?" Henry did not smile. He did not react to the laughter at all. He simply pressed a button on his communication device and spoke 3 words that would change the galaxy forever. "Wake them up." 12,000 light years away, Admiral Cole stood on the bridge of his ship and watched the message arrive. He was a tall man with broad shoulders and silver hair cut short in military style. His uniform was simple and dark, without medals or decorations. He had worn it in secret for 30 years, preparing for a day he hoped would never come. "Admiral," said Commander Lisa Warren, his second-in-command. She was younger than him, with sharp eyes and brown hair pulled back tight. "We have confirmation. New Haven is gone. The Council has authorized full response." Nodded slowly. Around him, the bridge crew worked at their stations with quiet efficiency. They had trained for this moment their entire careers. They had hoped it would never happen, but they were ready. "Send the signal to all hidden installations," said. "Mars shipyards, Titan weapons facility, the training academies on Europa and Ganymede. Wake up everything. Wake up everyone." Lisa pressed the buttons that would change human history. Across the solar system, lights came on in places that had been dark for decades. Doors opened that had been sealed for generations. Ships that the galaxy did not know existed began to power up their engines. "Admiral," Lisa said quietly, "our count shows 847 vessels ready for deployment. Another 200 can be operational within the week." Allowed himself a small, cold smile. "They think we have 50 ships." "They think many things that are not true, sir." On a small moon orbiting Jupiter, Captain Daniel Ford ran to his ship as alarms rang through the hidden base. He was 28 years old, the youngest captain in the fleet, and he had spent his whole life training for a war that everyone told him would never happen. "All pilots to your stations," the announcement system called out. "This is not a drill. Repeat, this is not a drill. Earth is going to war." Daniel climbed into the cockpit of his fighter and felt the engines come alive beneath him. Through his window, he could see hundreds of other ships doing the same. The sleeping giant was waking up, and it was angry. Back in the council chamber, the laughter had stopped. Something in Henry Brooks' eyes had silenced even the ambassador. The old diplomat looked around the room one final time. 40 years ago, we joined this council in peace," Henry said. "We asked only for friendship and trade. We helped anyone who needed help. We never raised a hand in anger." He paused and let his words sink in. "Many of you decided this meant we were weak. You were wrong. We simply chose to be kind. Today, we choose differently." He turned and walked toward the door. Just before he left, he looked back over his shoulder. "Tell your governments to stay out of our way. What comes next is between us and anyone who interferes will share their fate." The door closed behind him and the chamber erupted in chaos. But above the noise, one truth was becoming clear to everyone present. The humans had been hiding something, and the galaxy was about to find out what it was. Deep beneath the red surface of Mars, a door that had not opened in 40 years began to move. Dust fell from its edges as ancient machinery came back to life. Behind that door lay the greatest secret humanity had ever kept. General walked through the opening and looked at what her predecessors had built. Before her stretched a cavern so large that it had its own weather system. Clouds formed near the ceiling 2 miles above her head, and filling every inch of that impossible space were warships. They hung in rows like sleeping dragons, their hulls painted black to hide them from any scanner that might look too close. There were battleships the size of small cities. There were cruisers designed for speed and precision strikes. There were carriers that held thousands of fighters in their bellies, all of them waiting, all of them ready. "Beautiful, are they not?" said Dr. Samuel Gray, the chief weapons researcher who had spent his life in this hidden place. He was an old man now, with white hair and hands that shook slightly, but his eyes were bright with purpose. Nodded slowly. "How many in this facility alone?" 312 combat-ready vessels, another 60 in final construction. Mars is our largest shipyard, but Titan has 200 more. Europa has our fighter production. Ganymede trains our ground forces." Samuel smiled proudly. "We have been busy, General." Thought about the galaxy outside, where every species believed humans were peaceful farmers and clever traders. They saw humans as useful but harmless. They invited humans to their parties and laughed at their jokes, and never once thought to check if the friendly newcomers had teeth. "Show me the weapons," said. Samuel led her deeper into the facility, past rows of ships and teams of engineers who had lived their whole lives underground, keeping the secret. They reached a laboratory filled with devices that glowed with strange energy. "When we joined the Galactic Council," Samuel explained, "we gained access to their technology archives. Most species use what they find without trying to improve it. We are not most species." He picked up a small device that fit in his palm. "This is a standard Council shield generator. It can stop most weapons for about 30 seconds. He set it down and picked up another device, slightly larger. "This is what we built. Same basic technology but redesigned from the ground up. It can maintain shields for 6 hours under continuous fire. We also improved the weapons, the engines, the sensors, everything. Our ships may look simple, but they are the most advanced vessels in the galaxy." Felt a weight settle on her shoulders. All of this power, all of these years of preparation, and she had hoped it would never be needed. But the faces of 2.3 million dead humans floated in her mind, and her doubt turned to steel. "They are sending an occupation fleet to Earth," she said. "They expect to find a frightened population ready to surrender. What will they actually find?" Samuel's smile grew wider, a very unpleasant surprise. On Ganymede, Lieutenant Shaw ran through the final training simulation with his squadron. They had practiced these attacks 1,000 times in virtual reality, but today would be different. Today was real. "Listen up," called to his pilots as they gathered around him. "They think they killed defenseless farmers. They think we will cry and beg for mercy. They do not know that for 40 years we have been building an army. They do not know that every single one of us has trained since childhood for this moment." He looked at the young faces around him, some barely 20 years old. They had grown up in secret academies, learning to fly and fight while the galaxy thought human children were playing with toys. They were the hidden blade that humanity had kept sharp for 4 decades. "When we launch tomorrow," continued, "we will show them what happens when you wake up a sleeping giant. We will show them what humanity can do when we stop being nice. Are you ready?" The answer came back as one voice, "Ready, sir." Senator sat in the emergency session of Earth's government and listened to the arguments. Some leaders wanted to negotiate. Some wanted to apologize. Some could not believe what they were hearing about hidden fleets and secret weapons. "This is madness," said one senator. "We have been lying to the galaxy for 40 years. When this comes out, no one will ever trust us again." Stood and faced her colleagues. "Trust? They did not trust us. They killed our people anyway. The Galactic Council did not trust us. They laughed while the ambassador mocked our dead. Trust is for equals, and the galaxy has never seen us as equals. They saw us as sheep." Her voice hardened. "Today they learn we are wolves." The vote passed with an overwhelming majority. Earth would go to war. Admiral Cole stood on the bridge of his flagship and watched the first ships rise from their hiding places. They came from Mars and Titan and Europa and a dozen other secret locations. They gathered in the darkness between planets, forming a fleet larger than anything the galaxy had seen in centuries. Commander Lisa Warren handed him the latest intelligence report. "The occupation fleet is 3 days from Earth. They have 60 vessels. They expect to find a planet ready to surrender." Looked at the numbers on the screen. His fleet now numbered over 800 ships, with more joining every hour. They were flying into a trap so complete that they would never escape it. "Send a message to Admiral N," said quietly. "Tell him that Earth sends its regards. Tell him that we have not forgotten New Haven. And tell him that if he turns around now, some of his ships might survive." Lisa raised an eyebrow. "Do you think he will listen?" "No, they are too proud to retreat, but I want them to know. I want them to understand, even for just a moment, how badly they have miscalculated." The message flew across space at faster-than-light speed. On his warship, Admiral N received it and laughed. 60 vessels against a planet with no military. This would be the easiest conquest of his career. He did not bother to reply. He did not scan the space ahead for hidden threats. He simply ordered his fleet to continue forward, dreaming of the glory and rewards that awaited him. Meanwhile, Counselor Marsh worked quietly in the shadows of the Galactic Council. She was officially Earth's junior representative, a young woman with a forgettable face and a talent for going unnoticed. Unofficially, she was one of humanity's best intelligence officers. She met with ambassadors from species who had suffered under aggression. She shared information about human plans without revealing too much. She planted seeds of support that would bloom when the time was right. "The Council will condemn you," warned the ambassador, a female named who had lost her to invasion decades ago. "They will say you are disturbing the peace." Smiled softly. "There was no peace, ambassador. There was only fear. The strong took what they wanted and the weak suffered in silence. We are going to change that." Studied the human woman for a long moment. Then she nodded slowly. "I will not help you openly, but I will not stop you either. And if you succeed," she paused, "if you succeed, many species will remember who freed them from fear." The fleet was ready. The ships were armed. The crews had said goodbye to their families and prepared for whatever came next. And across the vast distances of space, Admiral Cole gave the order that would begin the war. "All ships, engage faster-than-light drives. Set course for territory. It is time to remind the galaxy that humanity bows to no one." The stars stretched into lines as 800 human warships leaped forward into the unknown. The sleeping giant was awake, and it was hungry for justice. The border station, or was considered one of the most secure military installations in the galaxy. It protected the main trade route into space with 40 warships and enough weapons to destroy a small moon. For 2 centuries, no enemy had dared to attack it. The station commanders had grown comfortable. They had grown lazy. They never saw the humans coming. Admiral Cole watched the tactical display as his fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel directly behind the station. This maneuver was supposed to be impossible. Every species in the galaxy knew that you could not exit faster than light inside a defended system. The energy disruptions would tear your ships apart. Every species was wrong. "All ships fire at will," ordered calmly. The first volley of human weapons struck the station before its shields could activate. Explosions bloomed across its surface like flowers made of fire. The 40 defending warships scrambled to respond, but they were too slow. They had never faced an enemy who moved like this. Commander Lisa Warren coordinated the attack from her console. "Enemy ships are trying to form a defensive line. They are using Standard Formation 7. Nodded. Standard formations were predictable. Human tacticians had studied every battle for 40 years. They knew exactly how the enemy would fight, and they had prepared counters for everything. "Send the fast attack squadrons around their flank," ordered. "Heavy cruisers maintain forward pressure. I want them trapped and confused." The battle unfolded with terrible precision. Human ships danced through space like predators playing with prey. Every time they formed a line, human vessels appeared behind them. Every time they tried to retreat, they found their escape routes blocked. On the command ship, Admiral N watched his forces being torn apart and could not understand what he was seeing. His sensors showed the human fleet, but the numbers made no sense. Where had they gotten so many ships? How were they moving so fast? Why did their weapons cut through shields like they were made of paper? "Send a message to High Command," and ordered, his voice no longer proud. "Tell them the humans have a real military. Tell them we need reinforcements immediately. Tell them." He paused as another explosion rocked his ship. "Tell them we may not survive this." Captain Daniel Ford flew his fighter through the chaos of battle, his squadron tight on his wings. They weaved between the massive warships, hunting for weak points and escape pods that might be carrying high-value targets. "Squadron leader, I have visual on a cruiser trying to run," called one of his pilots. "Should we pursue?" Daniel checked his tactical display. The cruiser was heading for a gap in the human lines. If it escaped, it would warn that could not be allowed. "All fighters follow me," Daniel commanded. "We take that cruiser down." They chased the fleeing ship through a field of debris from destroyed vessels. Daniel's weapons locked onto the cruiser's engines, and he fired a spread of missiles that turned the enemy ship into a cloud of expanding metal and flame. "Target eliminated," he reported. "No survivors." Back on the flagship, Lisa turned to with a report. "Our station is destroyed. 34 enemy ships eliminated. 4 managed to escape before we could close the trap. Our losses are 3 vessels, all crews evacuated before destruction." Absorb the numbers. 3 ships lost against 34 destroyed. The ratio was even better than they had planned. But he felt no joy. This was not a game. Real people were dying on both sides. "Send rescue teams to search for survivors," he ordered. "Any prisoners will be treated with respect. We are soldiers, not murderers." Lisa nodded and sent the order. Throughout the battle zone, human ships began collecting escape pods and injured from the wreckage. Many of the alien warriors expected to be killed or tortured. When they received medical care and warm food instead, they did not know how to respond. On the Galactic Council's observation network, every species with access watched the battle footage in stunned silence. They saw the human fleet appear from nowhere. They saw the advanced weapons tear through defenses. They saw the impossible maneuvers that should have destroyed any ship attempting them. "How is this possible?" whispered the ambassador to his aide. "Humans have been in the Council for 40 years. We have scanned their solar system hundreds of times. Where did this fleet come from?" His aide had no answer. No one did. Meanwhile, Sergeant Amy led her ground forces in a different kind of mission. While the fleet fought in space, her team had been dropped onto a mining colony where thousands of slaves from conquered species worked in terrible conditions. "Move fast and quiet," Amy instructed her soldiers as they approached the main compound. "Our goal is liberation, not slaughter. We take out the guards, we free the prisoners, and we get everyone to the evacuation ships." The operation went smoothly. Human soldiers moved through the compound like ghosts, neutralizing guards with precise shots that left no room for alarm. When they reached the slave quarters, they found hundreds of aliens from a dozen different species chained to their workstations. Amy approached a group of prisoners, their silver skin covered in dirt and scars. "You are free now," she said gently. "We are taking you home." An old female looked up at her with disbelief. "You are human. Humans are fighting the—" Amy nodded. "They attacked our colony. They killed millions of our people. So yes, we are fighting them, and we are winning." The old female began to cry, tears running down her silver cheeks. "We thought no one would ever stand against them. We thought we would die as slaves. You have given us hope." Word spread through the slave quarters. Humans were fighting humans were winning. Humans were setting prisoners free. For species who had suffered under rule for generations, it seemed like a miracle. Back in space, Commander Lisa analyzed the data from the battle and prepared the next phase of the campaign. "Admiral, our scouts report they are pulling forces back to protect their industrial systems. They are abandoning their outer territories to concentrate their strength." Studied the map of space. "Good. That is exactly what we want them to do. If they spread out, this war takes years. If they concentrate, we can end it in weeks." He pointed to a cluster of systems near the core. "These are their main shipyards and weapons factories. If we destroy these, their ability to make war is finished. That is our next target." Lisa nodded and began preparing the attack plan. "I will call it Operation Burning Sky." The name fit. When the humans arrived at those systems, the sky would burn with the fire of industry reduced to ash. As the fleet prepared to move deeper into enemy territory, a message arrived from Ambassador Henry Brooks at the Galactic Council. "The Council is demanding we stop our advance and negotiate," Lisa reported. "They say we are destabilizing the region." Read the message and shook his head slowly. Where was the Council when New Haven burned? Where was the Council when 2.3 million of our people became ash? He deleted the message. "Tell Ambassador Brooks to buy us time, make whatever promises he needs to make, but we do not stop until the pay for what they did." The fleet jumped to faster-than-light speed, heading deeper into the heart of darkness. The first battle was won. The real war was just beginning. The industrial complex at Prime had been producing warships for 300 years. Its orbital shipyard stretched for thousands of miles, a ring of metal and fire that circled an entire planet. At full production, it could build a new battleship every week. It was the heart of military power. Captain Porter studied the target through her ship's sensors and felt the weight of her mission pressing down on her shoulders. She commanded a strike force of 50 vessels, small compared to the main fleet, but carrying enough firepower to reshape a star system. "All ships confirm target locks," ordered. "We hit the power stations first. Once their shields drop, we destroy the shipyard section by section. No mercy, no hesitation." Her first officer, a young man named Lieutenant Jack, checked the tactical display. "Captain, sensors are picking up a defensive fleet, approximately 80 vessels moving to intercept." Did the math in her head. 80 against 50 was not good odds by normal standards, but these were not normal circumstances. "Execute attack pattern Delta 7, she commanded. "Show them what human ships can do." The battle began with a storm of missiles and energy beams that lit up the darkness of space. Strike Force moved with perfect coordination, each ship covering the others while striking at enemy weak points. The defenders fought bravely, but they were facing something they had never encountered before. Human ships seemed to predict every move they made. Human weapons punched through shields that should have been impenetrable. Human pilots flew with a reckless precision that bordered on insanity, taking risks that would have killed any other species, but somehow surviving every time. Jack led a team of demolition experts in a small assault craft that slipped through the chaos of battle. Their target was the main power reactor that fed the entire shipyard complex. If they could destroy it, the battle was over. 30 seconds to the target, Jack announced as his craft dodged between massive support beams and automated defense systems. "Prepare the charges." His team moved with practiced efficiency. They had trained for this mission 100 times in simulation. Every member knew exactly what to do and exactly how long they had to do it. The assault craft landed on the reactor's outer shell, and Jack led his team through an emergency airlock. Inside, engineers scrambled to stop them, but human soldiers cut through the defenders with cold efficiency. "Plant the charges here, here, and here," Jack ordered, pointing to critical junction points. "Timer set for 5 minutes. That gives us enough time to get clear." The explosives were placed, the timers activated, and the team ran for their ship. They launched away from the reactor just as the defensive fleet finally broke through the human lines, too late to stop what was about to happen. The explosion was visible from orbit. The power reactor disappeared in a ball of white fire that spread outward, consuming everything it touched. Without power, the shipyard's shields failed. Without shields, the human fleet tore the facility apart in minutes. Prime's 3 centuries of shipbuilding ended in a single day. Emperor received the news of another defeat and felt something he had never experienced before: fear. The humans had destroyed his border stations. They had liberated his slave colonies. They had burned his greatest shipyard to the ground, and they showed no signs of stopping. "Assemble the remaining fleet," he ordered his generals. "Every ship we have, every soldier who can hold a weapon. We make our stand at the..." If the humans want to destroy us, they will pay for every inch with blood." His generals bowed and left to carry out his orders, but in their eyes the Emperor saw doubt. They had believed power was unmatched in the galaxy. Now they knew the truth. There was always something bigger, something stronger, something that would rise up if pushed too far. At the Galactic Council, the debates grew more heated with each passing day. Speaker Ara, the who had led the council for decades, called for an emergency session to address the human campaign. "This aggression cannot be allowed to continue," argued the ambassador, a species that had maintained a profitable trade agreement with them for centuries. "The humans are disrupting the balance of power that has kept peace in the galaxy." Ambassador Henry Brooks stood to respond. He looked tired. He had barely slept since the war began, spending every hour defending Earth's actions to species who had done nothing while his people died. "Peace?" Henry's voice was quiet but filled with cold anger. "What peace? They have conquered 11 species. They maintained slave colonies on 40 worlds. They murdered 2.3 million humans for the crime of existing. You call that peace? I call it tyranny that you were too afraid to oppose." The chamber erupted in protests, but Henry continued over the noise. "Where was your concern for balance when the burned? Where was your outrage when the lost their colonies? You watched the rampage across the galaxy for centuries, and you did nothing because they were not attacking you." He paused and looked around at the assembled representatives. "Humanity asked for nothing but friendship when we joined this council. We offered help to anyone who needed it. We believed in diplomacy and cooperation. And what did we get in return? Mockery, contempt, and finally, the murder of millions of innocent people." Ambassador, the representative who had laughed at human threats weeks ago, was conspicuously silent. His species was losing, and everyone knew it. "The humans will stop when the threat is ended," Henry concluded. "Not before, and any species that tries to interfere will be considered an enemy of Earth. That is not a threat, that is a promise." After the session, Councillor Marsh met secretly with representatives from 6 different species. All of them had suffered under oppression. All of them wanted to help. "We cannot openly support you," said the ambassador, a small being with blue fur and large eyes. "But we can share intelligence, we can provide supplies, and we can make sure the Council does not take action against Earth." Nodded gratefully. "That is enough. Keep the Council busy with debates and procedures. By the time they agree on anything, the war will be over." Back at the front lines, Admiral Cole received reports from across space. The enemy was concentrating their forces at exactly as he had predicted. It was time for the final phase. "How many ships do we have available?" asked Commander Lisa Warren. 762. "Another 50 will arrive within the week if we need them." Lisa pulled up a map of the home system. "Their defenses are significant. Over 300 warships, orbital weapons platforms, and ground-based missiles. Taking the system will cost us." Studied the map for a long time. Every ship lost meant human lives ended. Every battle carried a price that could never be fully repaid. But stopping now was not an option. They would rebuild. They would seek revenge. And eventually, another human colony would burn. "We did not start this war," said quietly, "but we will finish it. Send a message to all fleet commanders. We move on in 48 hours. Operation Final Justice begins." Lisa sent the orders, and across human-controlled space, ships began to gather for the largest battle in galactic history. Soldiers wrote letters to their families. Pilots checked their fighters one last time. Engineers made sure every weapon was ready. In his quarters, Admiral Cole stood by a window and looked out at the stars. Somewhere among those distant lights was Earth, the world his ancestors had come from, the world he was fighting to protect. Somewhere out there was a galaxy that had underestimated humanity for the last time. "We are coming for you, Emperor," whispered to the darkness, "and there will be no mercy. hung in space like a jewel of blood and fire. Its red oceans reflected the light of twin suns, and its cities stretched across 3 continents in endless sprawls of metal and stone. For 1,000 years, this world had ruled an empire built on conquest and fear. Today, that empire would end. Admiral Cole stood on the bridge of his flagship and watched the human fleet emerge from faster-than-light travel. 762 warships arranged themselves in perfect formation around the home system. It was the largest military force the galaxy had ever seen assembled in one place. "Admiral, the defensive fleet is holding position near the planet," Commander Lisa Warren reported. 312 ships. They are not moving to intercept. Nodded. They know they cannot win in open space. They are hopping their orbital defenses, and ground weapons will even the odds. He studied the tactical display. They are wrong. He opened a communication channel that would broadcast to the entire system. His voice was calm and cold as ice when he spoke. "People of the Empire, this is Admiral Cole of the Earth Fleet. Your military attacked our colony and killed 2.3 million innocent civilians. Your emperor refused to apologize or offer compensation. Your leaders laughed at our grief and demanded our surrender." He paused to let his words sink in. "We did not surrender. We came here instead." On the planet below, billions of citizens looked up at the sky and saw the lights of human warships filling the darkness. Fear spread through the cities like wildfire. "In 1 hour we will begin our attack," continued. "We will destroy your defensive fleet. We will disable your orbital weapons. And then we will demand the unconditional surrender of your emperor and military command. If they refuse, we will remove them by force." He let the threat hang in the air before adding his final words. "We do not wish to harm civilians. We did not start this war, but we will finish it. The choice is yours." The hour passed in silence. The fleet did not move. The Emperor did not respond, had expected nothing less. "All ships commence attack," he ordered. The battle began with a wave of missiles that lit up the sky like a second sunrise. Human ships pressed forward in tight formations, their shields overlapping to create walls of energy that absorbed enemy fire. Defenders fought desperately, knowing that defeat meant the end of everything they had built. Captain Daniel Ford led his fighter squadron through the chaos, hunting for gaps in the enemy formation. His weapons were hot, his reflexes sharp, and his heart filled with cold determination. "Squadron, follow me through Sector 7, Daniel called to his pilots. "We hit their command ship and cut off their coordination." They dove toward the massive flagship, dodging defensive fire that filled space with deadly light. Daniel's fighter took a hit that knocked out his secondary systems, but he kept flying. Nothing would stop him today. His missiles struck the command ship's bridge, turning it into a ball of expanding flame. Without orders from their flagship, the remaining defenders began to scatter. Some tried to retreat. Some tried to surrender. None escaped. In 2 hours, the defensive fleet was gone. 300 ships reduced to debris that would orbit there as a permanent reminder of what happened to those who attacked humanity. Admiral Cole broadcast another message to the planet. "Your fleet is destroyed. Your orbital defenses are falling. Emperor, you have one chance. Surrender yourself and your military command and the war ends. Refuse, and we will come down there to get you." The response came from the Imperial Palace, broadcast on all frequencies so the entire planet could hear. Emperor's voice was defiant but strained. "The do not surrender to lesser species. We would rather die than bow to humans. If you want us, come and take us." Closed his eyes for a moment. He had hoped the Emperor would be reasonable. He should have known better. "General," he said through the command channel, "execute precision strike on the Imperial Palace and military headquarters. Civilian areas are to be avoided at all costs. We are soldiers, not monsters." On Earth, General authorized the attack from Strategic Command. Orbital weapons platforms that had been moved into position during the space battle powered up their targeting systems. They locked onto two buildings on the planet's surface, the Imperial Palace where the Emperor waited, and the military headquarters where his generals plotted. Fire ordered. The beams fell from the sky with surgical precision. They struck exactly where they were aimed, vaporizing the Imperial Palace and military headquarters in seconds while leaving the surrounding city blocks untouched. It was a display of power so controlled, so precise, that it terrified the watching galaxy more than any massacre could have. Emperor died without even knowing what hit him. His generals died beside him, their plans for resistance turning to ash with their bodies. And on the streets of the capital, citizens looked at the smoking craters where their rulers had been and understood that resistance was pointless. Within hours, a provisional government formed from civilians and moderate military officers agreed to unconditional surrender. The war was over. Ambassador Henry Brooks returned to the Galactic Council chamber 3 weeks later. The room was silent as he walked to the podium. Every representative watched him with a mixture of fear and respect that had never been there before. "The Empire has accepted our terms," Henry announced. "They will pay reparations to the families of New Haven. They will release all slaves from their colonies. They will dismantle their military to a purely defensive force, and they will never threaten another species again." He looked around at the faces watching him. Many of these beings had laughed when they mocked humanity. Many had expected humans to surrender quietly and disappear into history. None of them were laughing now. "Let me be clear about something," Henry continued. "Humanity did not want this war. We spent 40 years building friendships across the galaxy. We helped your wounded, we shared our science, we offered our hands in peace. But when our people were murdered, no one stood with us. No one offered help. No one even expressed proper sympathy." His voice hardened. "So we helped ourselves. We built a fleet in secret because we knew that the galaxy respects only strength. We prepared for war because peace means nothing to those who see you as prey." He paused to let his words settle. "From this day forward, the galaxy will remember what happened here. We are not asking for special treatment. We are not threatening anyone who leaves us in peace. But understand this, humanity has long memories and patient vengeance. Those who harm our people will face consequences. Not today, not tomorrow, but eventually, always." The chamber remained silent. No one dared to speak. Henry's expression softened slightly. "We still believe in peace. We still want to be friends with any species that treats us with respect. The hand of friendship is still extended to anyone willing to take it honestly, but the other hand now holds a sword. Remember that." He walked out of the chamber without waiting for questions. Behind him, 100 alien species began to rethink everything they thought they knew about humanity. Admiral Cole returned to Earth a hero, but he felt no joy. He stood at a memorial for the victims of New Haven, looking at 2.3 million names carved in stone, and allowed himself to grieve for everything that had been lost. Commander Lisa Warren found him there as the sun set. "The galaxy is calling you a legend," she said quietly. "They say you are the greatest military commander in 1,000 years." Shook his head slowly. "I am just a man who did what needed to be done. The real heroes are the ones whose names are on this wall. They never got a chance to fight back." He touched one of the carved names gently. "We did this for them. We did this so no one would ever think they could hurt us without consequences." Lisa nodded and stood beside him in silence. Around them, the memorial gardens were filled with families who had come to remember the lost. Children who would never know their parents. Parents who would never see their children grow up. An entire world of grief that would take generations to heal. But there was also hope. The galaxy had learned its lesson. The threat was ended forever, and humanity stood taller than it ever had before, respected by some, feared by others, and underestimated by none. A young historian would later write the official record of these events. Her final paragraph would be studied in schools across the galaxy for centuries to come. On this day, the universe learned a lesson it would never forget. Humanity's kindness was a choice, not a weakness. Their patience was a gift, not a flaw. And when that patience ended, the consequences shook the foundations of civilization. The humans taught us that the quiet ones are often the most dangerous, and that underestimating a peaceful species is the last mistake you will ever make. Remember New Haven. Remember the sleeping giant. And remember, above all, that humans have long memories and very sharp teeth. The stars burned on, indifferent to the struggles of living things below. But somewhere among those distant lights, Earth continued its ancient orbit around its sun, and its children walked among the stars with their heads held high, never again to be dismissed or mocked or harmed without reply. Humanity had arrived, and the galaxy would never be the same.